In this question, you have a piecewise function shown here, and this piecewise function changes right at x equals 1. You can see x is greater than 1 and x is less than or equal to 1. So that means we've got something coming in from the left. Because there's an or equal sign, we're going to have a solid dot wherever that is. This is very generic drawing. And then we've got something else when x is greater than 1. Because it's just greater, I'll have an open circle for that part of the graph. Now, I haven't drawn this correctly. I'm just trying for everybody to see that very generically what this looks like. So for question number 1, it wants to know what is the limit as x approaches 1. Well, because 1 is right where the piecewise changes, I need to compare the limit as x approaches 1 minus to see if that is equal to, I'm going to put a question mark underneath it, the limit as x approaches 1 plus from the right-hand side. So to figure out the left-hand limit, I'm going to use the bottom equation because this is x is less than 1 and 1 minus is less than 1. So I'm going to take a 1 and plug it in for -4 plus 1 squared. Well, that equals -3. Now I'll plug in a 1 to the upper equation. -7 plus 4 times 1. Well, -7 plus 4 is also equal to -3. So that means the left and the right-hand limit are both -3. And since -3 equals -3, that means my limit is -3. And so really what this means is my drawing is wrong. This portion of the graph would come up so that that open circle and that solid dot both meet at a y-coordinate of -3. Now, of course, I've always said my drawing wasn't right. It was a very generic drawing. And I don't care to have it right, but I want it to represent what we know so far. Well, the limit as x approaches 1 positive, that is this -3 that we already found. So that would be -3. The limit as x approaches 0, well, I'm just going to take this 0 and I'm going to insert it into the correct piecewise function. It needs to go in the bottom piecewise function because 0 is less than or equal to 1. So when I have -4 plus 0 squared, well, that's just -4. That's the answer for number 3. Similarly, the answer for number 4 will be when I plug 2 into the correct piecewise. Well, 2 is going to go into the upper portion because 2 is greater than 1. So when I plug a 2 in, I get -7 plus 4 times 2. Well, that's -7 plus 8, so that answer would be 1. Finally, a couple more. What is f of 1? Well, I'm just going to plug 1 in to the correct piecewise function. 1 is going to go here because 1 is less than or equal to 1. That is a true statement. So I have -4 plus 1 squared. Well, we've already found that to be -3. We've already done that math. F of 2, well, I'm going to plug 2 into the upper equation because 2 is greater than 1. So we have -4 plus 2 squared. -4 plus 4 is 0. Here are 2 more questions, or 4 more questions to make sure you've got it. Now we're looking at g of x. These should say g of x. and g of 2. So g of x, limit, g of 2, g of 3. So the limit as x approaches 2 minus of g of x, well now we're going to use a different piecewise. Because it says 2 on the minus side, that means less than 2, and so we're going to use the upper function. And so we have 2 squared plus 2, well that's equal to 6. Okay. Now, for number 8, it asks for the limit as x approaches 2. Well, that implies both the positive and the negative side. Well, we've already found the negative side to be 6. Does that equal the limit as x approaches 2 on the positive side? To figure that out, we're going to take this 2 and plug it in there for that x, because 2 plus is greater than 2. So when I do, I have 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. So on the right side, this right limit is equal to 7, and 6 does not equal 7. So that means the two-sided limit as x approaches 2 from both sides does not exist. Okay? Now, as we look at number 9, what is the function g right at 2? Well, so I need to look to see where I should plug in a 2. I can't plug 2 in here because 2 is not less than 2. That's a false statement. I can't plug 2 in here because 2 is not greater than 2. That's also false. And so that means since there's nowhere to put 2, g of 2 is undefined. If I'd had a greater than or equal to sign, then we could say 2 is greater than or equal to 2. Then we would have plugged it into this bottom one. But we didn't have that. So there's nowhere to put it. And so that answer is undefined. G of 3, well, 3 is greater than 2. So I'm just going to take a 3 and put it right here. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 3 more is 9. What on earth does this graph look like? Well, now we can sort of see. When we're coming in from the left, when x was less than 2, I was coming in at 6. So we'll say 2 is here, I come in, and I have an open circle when y is 6. And when we looked at it from the right side, we were coming in above 6 at 7, and I have 2 open circles, and the reason for that is one was x is greater than 2, and one was x is less than 2. There was no solid dot because there was no or equal to sign for my domain. I never had this or equal sign anywhere. If I did, that's where I would have put my dot. If I had this, the dot would go there. But I didn't have that, so I'd have to erase that dot.